to the Texas state of Texas.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is go ahead and get right to the opening statements, and we'll start right here with you, Joe. And gentlemen, I'm going to call you by your first names, if that's all right, or I can call you by your titles. What do you prefer?
Joe.
Nathan? Great. Okay, Joe, you're first. And you have a minute for your opening statement.
Thank you. Sun City, good morning. What a great turnout. My God. My name is Joe Jaworski. I'm a third-generation Texas lawyer, a former mayor of Galveston, Texas, who worked hard to rebuild my island after devastating Hurricane Ike. And I'm the grandson of a Texas Democrat who prosecuted World War II Nazis and the President of the United States. Now, when you put those two things together, Nazis and the President of the United States, seems to me what's old is new again. I'm proud of my grandfather, Leon Jaworski, who you remember from the Watergate scandal. And I tell you this story because his blood is my blood. So please, hear me when I say, Sun City, I'm ready, I'm unafraid. And I'm ready to be your next Attorney General. Joe Jaworski, thank you for being here today.
Nathan, your opening statement.
Thank you. My name is Nathan Johnson. I'm a Democratic state senator from Dallas, Texas. I got elected in 2018. I flipped a 30-year Republican seat that was minus 12 for Democrats. I won by 8. I did it by turning out the Democratic left. I did it by persuading independents to break 3-1 in my race, picking up moderate Republicans. That's how we won by 8. It was also a very good year to run. I think we're in another very good year to run. We're also in a very important year to run in a very, very important office. Joe and I are vying to be the Attorney General of Texas, which is one of the most powerful and important offices in the country, particularly at this moment, as the world of law, of the rule of law, as constitutional foundations, as democratic institutions are under assault. We have got to have an Attorney General who knows how to navigate this space and knows how to get the job done, like the 23 Attorneys General, the Democrats across the country that are fighting. In the legislature, I have passed 134 bills. I've been the #1 voice on Medicaid expansion. I am the Democrats' top expert on the grid, and when I get into the Attorney General's office, we will hit the ground running with your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The first question will go to Nathan. In your role as Texas Attorney General, what are the 3 most important powers you would have, and give examples of how you wield these powers?
The first power that is very important is the power, the constitutional duty to represent the state of Texas. Yes, a couple days ago, a Trump-appointed federal district court judge struck down Senate Bill 13. That is the anti-ESG bill that I argued on the Senate floor was unconstitutional, and the judge found it unconstitutional. At this moment, the Texas Attorney General decides whether or not to appeal that, or whether the bill is dead. If I'm the Attorney General, the bill is dead. Another power the Attorney General has is a civil investigative demand. The Attorney General is charged with policing corporations so they're not predatory with respect to consumers, that we don't have an obnoxious consolidation of power that brings prices up and quality down and makes service into crap. The Attorney General has a civil investigative demand power to learn what is happening in these corporations, to police them so that we can have an Attorney General who is a guardian of competition. The fourth power of the Attorney General is to protect consumers and to protect people by working with district attorneys across the state. And I'm out of time. Maybe we'll have more on that later.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Joe, same question for you. In your role as Texas Attorney General, what are the 3 most important powers you would have? Give examples of how you would wield these powers.
The power of hiring, the power of the lawsuit, the power of speech. Let's look at those, David. Number 1. Amazingly, the Office of Attorney General has 4,200 employees. What a great way to rebut the hate campaign that the Republicans had given those 3 beautiful words in the English dictionary: diversity, equity, and inclusion. So, as an HR matter, the Office of Attorney General can hire the best and the brightest: white, Black, Hispanic, Asian, of all religions, of all national backgrounds. Give them the tools to succeed, and then let them lead. The power of the lawsuit, of course, the most famous. I will file suits and I will defend good laws that promote democracy. We could talk for a long time about that. And finally, the voice. Like I did when I was Galveston mayor, I will be on campuses repeatedly, during my 4-year terms, high schools, colleges, law schools, preaching good democracy principles.
All right. The next question, we'll start with Joe. Most Democrats were disappointed in the cautious approach of U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland to prosecuting the corruption of the previous administration. Recognizing that there are differences between the duties of the U.S. Attorney General and the duties of the Attorney General of Texas, how will your approach differ from Garland's when it comes to addressing the cronyism and corruption at the highest level of our state government?
Texas is rife with cronyism and corruption. The government is for sale. Thank you, Greg Abbott. Dan Patrick taking a bribe from Tim Dunn 6 weeks before calling the first witness at Paxton's impeachment trial. What I will do, David, is be an attorney with an impeccable record. But we're going to have a new division at the Jaworski Office of Attorney General, the Division of Ethics and Integrity. This will be a whistleblower for state government, and we will use the Civil Investigative Demand Authority to look at how the pay-to-play culture has infected our state. This division will also, as I said in an op-ed published in the Dallas Morning News in 2024, promote the idea of independent redistricting, campaign finance caps, term limits, and the power of the people to initiate legislation and referendum. It's going to take constitutional amendments, but as we know, we have them every 2 years.
Thank you. Nathan, the same question for you. Most Democrats were disappointed in the cautious approach of U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland to prosecuting the corruption of the previous administration. Recognizing that there are differences between the duties of the U.S. Attorney General and the duties of the Attorney General of Texas, how will your approach differ from Garland's when it comes to addressing the cronyism and corruption at the highest levels of our state government?
Thank you. There's a time for everything. The time for caution is behind us. We have a big problem right now. We have a big problem with corruption. We have a big problem with executive powers taken from the legislature taking from the judiciary, and an attorney general is the one who's got to hold the pillars up before the roof falls on our heads. We have some rebuilding to do. Structures are ossified. We need to update them, replace them, but we cannot allow it all to fall. And so when we're talking about, if you're wondering about the courage and would I be aggressive, Joe mentioned the bribe that Dan Patrick got. It was a contribution. It was a $3 million contribution from a pro-Paxton group. I am the only one out of 181 legislators who called him out publicly for doing it. You can expect that kind of courage when I'm up against the forces of Donald Trump and Greg Abbott. If Greg Abbott wins, but I'm hoping that if we run a good campaign this cycle, Democrats sweep the slate. I don't think we can have restraint in the Attorney General's office at this point.
Thank you. And to Nathan again, if elected, how will you use your office to advocate for women's health and reproductive rights?
I will continue in the vein that I've been in 8 years in the legislature. I've probably filed as much, if not more, legislation that is supportive of reproductive and abortion rights of anybody. I was very instrumental in the writing of the laws last session that tried to clarify the medical exception without actually going back and reactivating 1925 abortion bans. I would take that attitude in the Attorney General's office, but I also never want to promise what the office can't deliver. The Attorney General is not a legislator. I can, however, honor not try to extradite physicians from out of state. I can honor the shield laws of the state of New York and the state of Illinois and the state of New Mexico. I cannot prosecute and persecute physicians and people who try to help women leave the state because we have the awful abortion ban in place. This office will be transformed with respect to abortion rights. We all are going to have to get a better legislature, but the Attorney General's office is not going to be a tool to hold people down. It will actually honor the good efforts of people outside the state of Texas.
Thank you. Joe, same question. If elected, how will you use your office to advocate for women's health and reproductive rights?
As your next Texas Attorney General, I will file suit and I will defend good laws if the legislature passes them that protects a woman's equal right to decide when to start her family and her God-given right to survive a difficult pregnancy. You know, there is actually a Texas Supreme Court opinion from yesteryear when Democrats were on the Texas Supreme Court that respects and identifies a right to privacy in the Texas Constitution, which supports the right to an abortion. Also, there are equal rights arguments, David, that have never been explored. And I would say that I don't have to cooperate with laws that I believe, as an attorney, are unconstitutional. So all these attack laws that Jonathan Mitchell, one of Ken Paxton's spawn, who's made a little celebrity law firm out of suing the people that help women get mifepristone and misoprostol, that comes to an end.
Thank you. All right, I have a few questions here that we also ask our other candidates. They were so good, we have to ask them again. At our last meeting, one of our speakers, Dr. John Ray, an expert in political science and public policy, spoke on the importance of being able to reframe questions in order to create a new consensus in a starkly divided political environment. For example, a question on the perils of climate change might be reframed as a question of insurability in the wake of weather disasters. Provide an example of a question that you could reframe in such a way as to attract voters in the general election that might otherwise vote for your opponent.
Well, it was a pleasure to speak with Dr. Ray before the meeting, and I'm glad you're here, Doctor. I agree with you. Framing matters greatly. So we keep hearing about election integrity, like Greg Abbott and Ken Paxton are doing us some great favor, when in fact there are 32 million Texans, 25 million are eligible to vote 18 and older. 18.5 million are on the voter roll. And you know how many voted in the 22 midterm? 8 million. Not even, like almost a third of the eligibility. Election integrity is not a problem. Suppression is the problem. And so the way I'd reframe it, Dr. Ray, is to say, if you want integrity, let's look at the purpose of the elections, which is to deliver the vox populi, the voice of the people. Best way to do that? Get more people to vote. So, as Texas Attorney General, I will be the first ever to enforce Texas Election Code 13.046D, which requires every high school principal to register the senior class.
Thank you. Mental same question for you. At our last meeting, one of our speakers, Dr. John Ray, an expert in political science and public policy, spoke on the importance of being able to reframe questions in order to create a new consensus in a starkly divided political environment. For example, a question on the perils of climate change might be reframed as a question of insurability in the wake of weather disasters. Provide an example of a question that you could reframe in such a way as to attract voters in the general election that might otherwise vote for your opponent.
As a Democrat in the minority in the legislature who's passed 135 bills, I spend a lot of time reframing issues. When I first brought Medicaid expansion up, I was told by Democrats, don't bring it up, you won't be taken seriously. But I thought, you know what? If we talk to economists, we can get a net positive revenue stream to the state with no new taxes. We'd get $2 billion for state government, $2 billion for local government, insure 1 million people, lower health insurance premiums, and decrease bankruptcies. What about that, Republicans? I got a majority of House members for about 5 minutes, and then advocated the House Medicaid expansion. So I later found a way to bring down federal subsidies, basically to fix Obamacare. I didn't say fix Obamacare. I said take back federal authority, bring it to Texas, and get private health insurance for hardworking Texans. Boom, it passed. What would I do this session, this cycle? This cycle, I would reframe the issue, the business issue, from pro-business to pro-competition. We need competition in business in Texas, not monopolies.
Thank you. All right. This question will be first again, or first here. Many of us who watched the debate between James Talarico and Jasmine Crockett, both, I want to make clear, both wonderfully substantial and compelling candidates, but the difference between them, many of us saw as more of a difference in style than substance. And I'm curious to know, how will your campaign style help you defeat your Republican opponent in the general election?
So my style is to bring substance to a campaign. And it's not all that fashionable, but I think people are hungry for politicians to talk about real things that affect their lives, which is why I talk about Senate Bill 13, anti-ESG, because it raises borrowing costs for municipalities, which means it raises your taxes. Bring substance to this. We're going to be against Chip Roy or Aaron Riots or Mays Middleton, and they're going to talk about banning Sharia law. They really, really are. It's amazing. I think Aaron Wright's is psychotic. He'd be a delightful opponent. I've already beat one of these guys in 2018. If we get in there and demonstrate that Democrats are the party that can govern with restraint, with wisdom, with fiscal responsibility, with compassion, with moral clarity and vision, and talk about the specific issues that affect us, we will win because for the first time in decades, people will see, hey, they're making sense. That's going to be my style. I'm going to use substance.
Thank you. Yeah, same question for you. Many of us who watched the debate between James Talarico and Jasmine Crockett saw it more as a difference in style than in substance. How will your campaign style help you defeat your Republican opponent in the general election?
I did watch the debate. I agree. It was two great Democrats with different styles. My style is to show up on time. Actually, early means on time, and stay late. My style is to get all around the state, just like I've been doing in this primary campaign. No one is out hustling Joe Jaworski. And it's going to continue in the general, because Democrats will have a great leg up in this 2026 cycle, because the core Republican MAGA voters, leave them to themselves. They will ruin each other's pelts. But moderate Republicans and independents are going to be swinging toward Democrats. And ladies and gentlemen, the loyal Democrats are angry and will turn out in great numbers. So we need to be all around the state, visible. Also, David, my style is a team player. I think we run as a ticket. I think no more vanity projects. We have great nominees for governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, U.S. Senate. Let's get around the state. Let's show Texas what Ann Richards showed them a long time ago.
Thank you. All right. Let's see, no, it stays. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm confused. In addition to the duties enumerated in the Texas Constitution, ensuring election integrity has been added to the list of responsibilities of the Texas Attorney General. What does ensuring election integrity mean to you, and how do you intend to manage this responsibility?
I touched on this, David, in responding to Professor Ray's question, or the example. And so another division that will have a brand new one at the Office of Attorney General under Joe Jaworski is the Office of Elections and Voter Encouragement. So that is the magic word. Let's encourage voting. When did it become such a white-knuckle affair, as the captain of the Titanic might have said, that voting is one of these things where you might go to jail if you do it wrong? How offensive. So, David, what I would say is we're going to make voting easier. And there are any number of ways to do that. Let's encourage voting by mail. Let's make sure that the people working the polls are given the powers that the law allows them to do. But let's make sure that people aren't being unfair when they go, well, that signature doesn't look right. You know, and so what I would say is people want to vote. We're going to make it easier to vote, and my division will use the law to make it easier to vote.
Thank you. Nathan, same question for you. In addition to duties enumerated in the Texas Constitution, ensuring election integrity has been added to the list of responsibilities of the Texas Attorney General. What does ensuring election integrity mean to you, and how do you intend to manage this responsibility?
I remember saying on the Senate floor when they were passing, I can't remember which wretched bill it was. It's one of the bad voting bills. I said, I don't want to ever hear anybody say the words election integrity. Oh, it's the gerrymandering. It was the mid-decennial gerrymandering, which not only was unconstitutional, it was just bad faith, trying to insulate themselves from voter backlash. I said, I don't ever want to hear any of you Republicans use the words election integrity again, because you have just erased election integrity. This next election is not going to be reflective of the voters' will, and you're doing it in flagrant contradiction of your own professed values. Election integrity means your vote matters. It means an independent redistricting commission, which I filed in multiple sessions. It also means honoring that our election system is largely local. They gave the Attorney General more power to prosecute election frauds. You know why I get voted against it? They do that in several states, because it's unconstitutional. If we're going to take elections seriously, we have to make sure that everybody's vote means something. They're not carved up, carved out, suppressed, and that the state isn't running it, let alone Donald Trump. That's happening too.
Thank you. So, Between 2021 and 2025, Texas initiated or joined over 100 lawsuits challenging the federal government. Not coincidentally, these suits were filed by a Republican AG against a Democratic federal administration. If you're elected, do you intend to challenge the current Trump administration in court? If so, what policies or practices of the current administration do you see as violations of Texas sovereignty laws or Constitution?
Harking back to Greg Abbott saying, my job as Attorney General, and I wake up, I go to the office, I sue the federal government, I go home. It's cute, but it's obnoxious because he was suing Obama. Ken Paxton sued the Biden administration 106 times, sued the Trump administration 0 times, so far has sued Trump 0 times. I would sue the hell out of the Trump administration, not for fun, but because they're so bad. Every day they do something unconstitutional. What would I have sued so far? No, you cannot deploy the troops to Chicago. That's unconstitutional. No, you cannot unilaterally withhold $300 million in low-income solar panel renewable energy funding for the state of Texas that has been previously appropriated. No, you cannot withhold $700 million from our public schools that Congress has appropriated, and on and on and on. He needs to be sued. We have 23 Democratic attorneys general who have sued Trump 77 times. They've blocked 41 of his illegal actions. That's a pretty good record. I can't wait to join that team.
Well, same question. Between 2021 and 2025, Texas initiated or joined over 100 lawsuits challenging the federal government. Not coincidentally, these suits were filed by a Republican Attorney General against the Democratic federal administration. If you're elected, do you intend to challenge the current Trump administration in court? If so, what policies or practices of the current administration do you see as violations of Texas's sovereignty, laws, or Constitution?
Yes, I'll have a hostile relationship with the Trump administration. and I hate to say that, but does anyone in this room think they're going to reform after we beat them in 26? Oh no. It is going to be a fight for survival at that point. So my view is I will expand on something that I participated in yesterday. In Harris County, I stood right alongside my friend Raif Gonzalez, who filed a class action lawsuit against Kristi Noem and Department of Homeland Security on behalf of all Latino Texans, a class action that we shouldn't have to show our papers because life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness guaranteed to us in our founding documents. It's inconsistent with walking around looking over your shoulder, hoping that your document isn't lost. As Attorney General, I will be greatly influenced by all the great Democratic AGs who have filed constitutional litigation against the Trump administration already. I'll join it.
Thank you. Texas has not had a Democrat win a statewide office, this is for Joe, excuse me, I lost my place here. Texas has not had a Democrat win a statewide office in over a generation. If you're elected, you will likely need to work, quote unquote, across the aisle with Republicans. Provide examples of your history of working with Republicans to achieve a common purpose.
So David, I'm going to use that as a hypothetical because we all know in 26 we're going to run the slate. It's all going to be Democrats who win in 26 because Texas deserves it finally. But David, in the response to your question, I was city council member, mayor pro tem, and mayor for a total of 8+ years in Galveston. And that was a nonpartisan, role. And I mean, I was very well received at the Chamber of Commerce, the Galveston Pachyderm Club, where I spoke at least 5 times as mayor, and also in the Coffee Club, which is like, just imagine Tony Blair in Parliament, constantly having to defend himself. This is the Republican establishment in Galveston, and they were always questioning me about public housing, which I did deliver at great risk to my political survival as mayor, but I did it because it was the right thing to do. And David, that's the mantra. It's the right thing to do. I'll be fair. I'm a lawyer for 35 years who have dealt with Republican and Democratic judges. There's respect there. I will be fair.
Thank you. Maybe the same question for you, which is Texas has not had a Democratic win a statewide office in over a generation. If you're elected, you will likely need to work across the aisle with Republicans. Provide examples of your history of working with Republicans to achieve a common purpose.
Thank you, David. The important thing is to be able to fight the Republicans and work with the Republicans. I've been a loudmouth on the Senate floor quite a bit, but again, I've also passed 130 bills. Best example, I think, is Senate Bill 1296. That's the one that has been independently estimated to have gotten 350,000 low-income Texans health insurance for the first time ever. My House author was a conservative Republican. And we worked both parties in both chambers to make sure a very, very, one of the most important pieces of legislation to have passed had support from everybody. And we did pass that bill overwhelmingly. I don't think we had a single no vote, despite the end of the year bloodbath that we usually have. Last little anecdote, you should have seen Greg Abbott's face during a bill signing ceremony when we had all these bills about the power grid, and he had to hand me the pen, and he's looking at his staff like, why is the Democrat in here? Because 3 of the 5 bills were mine. I can work with them, and I will as Attorney General.
Thank you. Okay. Affordability has been a rallying cry for Democratic candidates throughout the country. How can the office of the Texas Attorney General have an impact on the issue of affordability for Texans?
It's going to be indirect, but it's going to be real. And that is, again, I want to come back to market competition. When there's no competition, prices go up. We've kind of all bought this Milton Friedman credo that what's the business of business is business, and we should be as rapacious as possible, and that's good for consumers. But what we found over time is that the consolidation of power not only is more efficient, the efficiency goes to those who own the damn business. What's happened is we don't have competition. We don't have grocery stores on every corner. We don't have multiple pharmaceutical companies manufacturing necessary drugs or manufacturing saline bags. We have concentration of power. Now, that's one area where the Paxton OAG hasn't been terrible. They've actually gone after Google. They've gone after hotels. I've filed legislation to wipe out junk fees in apartments. I think we have to resurrect antitrust laws and consumer protection laws in Texas and use the federal authority of the Attorney General to bring down prices by fighting conglomerates and monopolies.
Thank you. Same question. Affordability has been a rallying cry for Democratic candidates throughout the country. How can the office of the Texas Attorney General have an impact on the issue of affordability for Texans?
Thank you, David. A new division, another one under the Jaworski Office of Attorney General, the Division of Affordability, also known as, how can the Texas Attorney General keep money in your pocket? Why can't the OAG do that? I mean, it doesn't have to be just how do I persecute the parents of trans children and how can I go after Muslim institutions in Texas? Why not go to the root of living here? Can you afford the American dream? And so, David, among many things, the Office of Attorney General Division of Affordability will collect child support and deliver all of it on time. We'll address junk fees, and we'll enforce the laws that already, address junk fees against apartment, rental landlords who stick it to their tenants. Root out political corruption. The actual tax on all Texans. Thank you, Greg Abbott, giving all these no-bid contracts out because there's always a disaster. Fight monopolies to keep grocery prices low and predatory practices, payday lenders. You got an enemy in the OAG.
Thank you. All right, and you'll first address this next question. While state and local law enforcement in blue states like Minnesota and Illinois appear to be limiting their cooperation with ICE, in Texas, these agencies seem to be much more tightly coordinated. As resistance in Texas mounts to this federal masked secret police force, how will you help ensure that state and local law enforcement is not simply an extension of this police force? Do you see yourself as having a role in the protection of peaceful protesters?
Well, there are more Latinos that live in Houston, Texas, and Harris County than there are in the Valley, all right? There are blue leaders in counties like Houston, Harris County, Dallas County, Austin, Travis County. As the Attorney General in 2027 and onward, I will give voice and stay out of the way of local leadership. You would expect a former mayor to say that. I believe in local government. People can drive 5 to 10 minutes to the local city hall, stand in line, and be heard for 3 minutes. Just try to go to Ken Paxton's office. It's like North Korea there. They won't let you in. And so, David, what I would say is, this is a chance for government in its purest form to coexist. School districts, cities, counties, state, as opposed to the Abbott, Patrick, Paxton, cram down Death Star view of government, where you'll do as we say and you don't have local decision-making authority. That ends.
Thank you. Nathan, same question. While state and local law enforcement in blue states like Minnesota and Illinois appear to be limiting their cooperation with ICE, in Texas these agencies seem to be much more tightly coordinated. As resistance in Texas mounts to this federal mass secret police force, how will you help ensure that state and local law enforcement is not simply an extension of this police force? Do you see yourself as having a role in the protection of peaceful protesters?
I do, and I think that this is kind of a focal point of a deep sickness in this country right now that we've all been watching. Y'all ever heard of a 287G agreement? A 287G agreement is an agreement between a state, or now a state or city or local government, with ICE, with the federal government, with immigration enforcement, where you agree that you are going to follow their instructions and be an extension of federal immigration authorities. Ken Paxton signed the only 287G agreement between a state and the federal government, ICE, in the whole country. I will print it out the day after I'm elected. I will hold it up in front of a camera and tear it in half. We're done with that. We are not an extension of ICE. We do have to protect the rights of protesters. There's been lies by the federal government about misbehavior. They need to know that an attorney general is going to defend them, not prosecute them. I will make that very clear.
Thank you. Both of you have expressed your dedication to the rule of law. Tell us why we should have faith that the rule of law will hold against the influence and power of billionaire donors, the corrosion of consensus by social media, and the obeisance of a Supreme Court and Congress to a unitary executive. We are not looking for an answer that is warm and fuzzy.
Okay, here's not warm and fuzzy. I don't think you should have faith that the rule of law is going to prevail. I think you should take it upon yourselves to make sure that it does. I say often, if you think it can't get any worse, it will. If you think it can't get any better, it won't. It's up to us whether it gets better or worse. The rule of law is absolutely under assault right now. A little bit of hope. Federal courts, on occasion, even Trump appointees, are ruling the right way. The rule of law is not dead. It's why this race is so critically important. It's so important that we have a Democrat in the Attorney General's office who actually will follow the rule of law, even when we don't like it sometimes. We get asked by the press all the time, what are you going to do when you have to defend these bad Republican laws? Legislature has a right to make stupid laws. We have a right to vote them out. But the Attorney General absolutely has to make sure that the law is not abused and twisted and violated in the pursuit of a right-wing agenda.
Thank you. Same question, and both of you have expressed your dedication to the rule of law. Tell us why we should have faith that the rule of law will hold against the influence and power of billionaire donors, the corrosion of consensus by social media, and obeisance of Supreme Court and Congress to a unitary executive. We are not looking for an answer that is warm and fuzzy.
A republic, if you can keep it. Yeah, so it's up to us to vote. This is where the buck stops. And so SD9 gives me faith that we're on the right track. Did you know that Taylor Remmett, a white man, got 80% of the Latino vote in that district? There's going to be ICE agents at the Summer Olympics. You know that there will be ICE agents at the polls. And so what we need to do is stand up in numbers too big to ignore. White, black, Hispanic, Asian, everyone. This is what I have been referring to, the power of the people. The elections are the final step in the democratic analysis. This is why, as Attorney General, I'm going to be focusing on making voting easier, registering the 18-year-olds, so it becomes a habit as they mature. But ladies and gentlemen, this turnout is evidence that gives me hope. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me ask you the next question here. Do you have a plan to help up and down ballot candidates if you succeed?
Absolutely. This is what I was talking about, team player, David. And, I've always contributed to Democratic candidates. I'm so sorry to see Colin Allred lose in 2024, but his team called my wife and myself, and we pulled 350 people on a one night in Galveston and raised him $65,000. It is that dedication to the ticket and the party that I have always exemplified. David, also, I had a radio show before I announced for this race called The Midterms. You can see what was on my mind. And I had all the major candidates come in, Beto O'Rourke, Colin Allred, Vicki Goodwin, and on, to speak on my show about what they see the 2026 race shaping up to be. David, it will be my pleasure to be a team player. No more vanity projects. We run as a party because that's what, in the distant memory that we all have, Texas knows that the Democrats ran this place better.
Thank you. Nathan, same question for you. Do you have a plan to help up and down ballot candidates?
Absolutely. I have already experienced the benefit of working together. In 2018 election, there was this big Beto O'Rourke thing, and everyone talks about the Beto wave and the rest of us just getting washed in. Nonsense. I hit 200,000 doors, and I teamed up with then Representative, now Congresswoman Julie Johnson, and I was in the same living rooms as Colin Allred and John Turner, and it was really together. We increased turnout in the Democratic vote, I think triple. It was that combined effort, and that is how we win. I think it's what was lacking in the last few cycles. Frankly, I think it's what was lacking in 2018. There will be no brighter star. Whatever you think of Beto, I think he was a magnificent candidate. He topped out at 48% because there was no strength across the ticket. Despite people's efforts, they were underfunded races. Justin Nelson, great candidate, underfunded. If this state pays attention to the Attorney General's race, the governor's race, the comptroller's race, we will have the combined effort so that people feel like they're voting not just for one exceptional person, they're voting for a team that can win. That takes us from 48 to 51. I'll be part of it.
Thank you. What does polling say about your chances of winning, and what do you think about polls?
I don't know. I think we ran some polls last summer. I've run some polls since then, and my polls say I win, right? They always do. I love the polls. I'm also realistic, right? We see polls that say Colin Allred is up 4. He's down 9 on election day. Polls give us information. They don't necessarily give us the answer. And so I think my style of polling is to find out what are the things that are getting people interested in voting. What are the things that make them feel good or feel bad about a candidate? Yes, we want to forecast. I think really a better indicator is not the polls, as Joe just mentioned. I think Senate District 9 is an indicator. I think the various special elections and regular elections we've seen across the country in the last year are the indicator. I think it's overwhelmingly likely that 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 Democrats win statewide, that we take House seats, that we take congressional seats. I think it's a huge year, and there's nothing in the polls that say to the contrary. The rest is instinct and hope and determination, and believe it or not, that moves elections.
Thank you. Joe, same question for you. What does polling say about your chances of winning the race, and what do you think about polls?
Well, David, I got to tell you, the only polls I care about are the ones whose last names end in ski. But all kidding aside, these polls, we've lived with them for a long time, and they're just as wrong as they are right. What I want to talk about is how we manifest success. It's going to be Chip Roy. I don't need a poll to tell me this. It's going to be Chip Roy and MAGA Mays Middleton. He actually changed his name in a runoff, a 75-day runoff where they will ruin each other's pelts. And then when June 1st emerges and the victor washes off the blood, they'll then be well funded. But they'll have a record of hate on Muslims, on trans families, and undocumented Texans. But the truth is, they know that and I want to use some ribald language, but I won't here. People are angry over ICE, and so they're going to put the agents at the polls. We got them on this one.
Thank you.
That's the only poll that matters.
All right, we are going to go right now. I believe I have to watch our time to leave there. I believe we're going to go right now to questions that will be different for each of you. Okay? I believe I've let everybody answer everything. how did your role as mayor for Galveston, I'm going to skip, I wrote some backups because I think this has been answered a little bit already, some of the stuff I was going to ask you. So I'm going to let you elaborate a little bit more. I think people have an interest in the influence that Leon had on your political ambitions.
Well, absolutely. So my dear grandfather, Leon Jaworski, was not some stranger to me. I lived with him my freshman year of college. He had a beautiful ranch here in Wimberley where I grew up. And my first memory is, of course, being at the ranch. What I'll tell you is this. It's encapsulated by a visit during my spring break when I was 12 years old, 1974. I went to the Jefferson Hotel where Mr. and Mrs. Jaworski were living. And I remember seeing this large Wells Fargo safe in their suite. Well, you know, a good thing for the Watergate special prosecutor to have, given the genesis of what happened at the Watergate. I remember walking with him on a cold, crisp Washington March morning to the office of the Watergate special prosecutor. He had his briefcase handcuffed to his wrist. I remember he sent me a note that summer wishing that he could switch places with me. And it was the day before the United States Supreme Court argument. I'm a proud lawyer. I take his legacy deeply to heart. I will do it honor.
Thank you. Nathan, this is a very different question for you, and I kind of set these up. I thought, okay, one of them looked to a past inspiration. One of them looked in a little bit different generation. I had a son who loved Dragon Ball Z growing up. But I wanted to ask you, sort of, that experience was very interesting to me, and you forefront that. How did your work on Dragon Ball Z, and tell us what that is, how did that give you insight maybe into another generation of voters?
Very interesting. Anybody heard of Dragon Ball Z? Yeah. You got grandkids, right? Or actually, there's plenty of middle-aged CEOs that watch Dragon Ball Z. Right as I gave up on my music career and decided to go back to law, I got a big break and was hired to write music, and ultimately did 67, the underscores for 67 episodes of Dragon Ball Z and 5 movies. And to this day, most people don't know who it is, and a few people start sweating when they meet me. Dragon Ball Z, and they're very excited. How did it make me connect with people? I think it gives you an amount of street cred when you go in and he did what? Now, the music was pretty bad because I wrote it quickly, but it actually was interesting just to see all the cultural references in that show. It's packed with cultural references. So I do think it allowed me to relate to people in a way I couldn't before. But more importantly, musical training itself, I think, cultivates a gymnastics of mind that are very useful in politics because you can look at things from any angle. The creativity helps, and it was a wonderful opportunity for me in multiple respects.
Thank you. I believe that you went first, the first question, I believe, didn't you? So I'm going to let you do the first closing, and then I'll let you do the final closing, kind of like the Swiss.
Well, Sun City, what a pleasure it is to be with you on this beautiful Saturday, only 10 days to early voting. I know that we are ready for what's about to come. And I also know, Sun City, that when we get past this primary, and I'm your nominee, and let me first say, I respectfully ask for your vote. When we get past the nomination, it's going to be one hell of a fight. But that's what elections are for. We don't use weapons, we use ballots. Now, I'm not naive. It's going to be dirty, it's going to be ugly, but we're up for it because we're on the right side of history. So, let's go out there together after we have this wonderful forum conclusion. And let's tell the state, and let's tell the nation what real democratic leadership looks like. It looks like this. Sun City, I will never lie to you. I can't be bought, and I have your back. I'm Joe Jaworski, respectfully asking for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much, not just for sitting through Joe and I for 45 minutes, but for being here as long as you are, as engaged as you are. We're all depending on you to deliver Texas, and I know you're depending on us. We're going to do our best. You do have a decision to make in a primary race. Those can be difficult. I think you're going to need to consider who can win the race, because everything else is idle chit-chat if we lose, but who can beat the Republicans in November? Who can deliver while they're in office? I do have a history of beating Republicans. I did flip a 30-year seat. It is a lot of fun. Primaries are way harder, because we're fighting people we agree with for the most part, but it's going to be fun. I promise. The other thing is, can they deliver while they're in office? And I've been able to work against Republicans, fight the fights, as well as deliver while in office while we're there. I think you need to be careful about people telling you things that you want to hear if it's not relevant to the election. And I try to always tell you the things that I can do and can't do, and I will make everyone else respect that as well. I can't wait to be part of the statewide team that flips the state.
Thank you. I know people could have expected more from our candidates in terms of great answers.